about this idea of atmospheric perspective using value and how this is going to fit into our whole knowledge of color theory. Now, atmospheric perspective is an idea that comes from fine art, and I want to demonstrate it with a couple of my own paintings that I've done in Photoshop. Now, this is a very simple, quick landscape speed paint, and you'll notice that atmospheric perspective is at work here in a couple of ways. Well, one, the rocks that are farther away off in the background there, they're lighter and lower contrast, and also they don't have a full range of values in them. I just want to use my marquee tool to highlight the two rocks that I'm talking about there. See, they're farther away, and they don't have the full range of values. If you look at this one rock here that's closer, it has a more full range of value. It has light gray, white, dark gray, medium gray, and really, really dark values. But the ones in the distance don't have as many values. They have more mid-range values, and they're lower contrast. Now here is, even though this design here, this illustration is more kind of flat and two-dimensional, when I painted this, I wanted to use the idea of atmospheric perspective as well. So the background mountains and bushes, look, they're very, very light and low contrast. And in fact, the three bushes that are in the foreground are darker than the ragged sort of long grass in the background, and then the mountains in the background. Whereas if you look at the trees, the rocks, and the water that I drew in the foreground here, they're higher contrast, and they are dark and they contrast against the lighter background, right? And we also see a lot more of a fuller range of values in the foreground elements. Something else that you're going to notice with atmospheric perspective, and here's another one, is that something that really helps is reducing the saturation of your background elements, whether it's an illustration, a painting, or just a simple graphic design that you're making for a website. Right, if you lower the saturation of whatever background element, the background elements might just be secondary elements in your design. They might be elements that are not the focal point. See, I'm just using my saturation blending mode to desaturate those trees in the background there. And what that does is that also helps to make the trees look farther away. So if you want elements in your design to go into the background, to appear farther away, desaturate them. And in the CS program, see, that's the before with no saturation. This is the after with saturation, and it creates a feeling of depth. And so last step here is desaturated, low contrast objects in the background, and higher saturated objects in the foreground. And you'll notice that the higher saturated objects also have a fuller range of values, and they're also higher contrast.